Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Roos. Welcome to this live debate of the S&D Group. And I would like to introduce our first speaker, Gaby Bischoff. Gaby is a member of the European Parliament since 2019. She has a long experience in the trade unions, and she's working on the Committee of Constitutional Affairs, Employment and Social Affairs, and Economic and Monetary Affairs, key issues which are going to be discussed during the conference on the future of Europe, which we are engaging in and we would like to discuss with the European citizens. I would also like to introduce the second speaker, who is Leonie Martin. Welcome, Leonie, as well. Leonie works for the Young European Federalists, JEF Europe. She's the president. It's a young and dynamic organization fighting for the future of Europe. As you all know, yesterday, the conference on the future of Europe was officially launched on Europe Day, a very important initiative which will follow us now in the coming months and years. We would like to engage with as many people and organizations as possible. The S&D Group is very engaged. We have created a dedicated platform on our website, a multilingual one where you can come and post your comments, ideas about the future of Europe. We also have a dedicated Facebook site, Progressives for Europe. Therefore, please post your messages with the hashtag Progressives for Europe. And we will want to engage with you as much as possible in the coming days and months. And I would like now to give the floor to Gaby. Gaby, for you, what do you expect from this conference and what should European citizens expect from this conference? I'll give you the floor.
Thank you very much and a warm welcome to everybody. Herzlich willkommen, bienvenue to this debate on the future of Europe. And this means we are discussing about your future, about my future, because the European future is only one if it really is the future of the citizens. And this endeavor of this conference on the future of Europe as a 2-year process to involve citizens and to make sure that we are ready for a better future, that the European Union is capable to act for you, to deliver for the citizens. And therefore, I'm very happy that we start this conference, and this is also my expectation, not as a debate amongst the usual suspects, about the ones that professionally deal with Europe, but it is about to involve everyone, the diversity of our society, to collect ideas and concrete proposals how to make Europe better and capable to act. And I think some people think Europe is a project for elites. And for me, this conference also has to deliver to say, this is not a debate of
We have lost Gaby. Hopefully she will be back. In the meantime, Leonie, can you tell us, what do you think, what should European citizens, and you as a European citizen, what do you expect from the future from this conference?
That's a good question. Thank you, Peter. I'm expecting an opportunity from that conference. We've heard, at least, from lots of politicians that the conference is coming, and I'm very happy that it was launched yesterday. And with that kind of long expectation, we had a pandemic at the same time. There were already so many things where we could see that Europe needs to be improved, and where there's so many things to do already. We have a migration, not crisis, but challenge where we really need to help people in the Mediterranean Sea, for instance. We have a rule of law crisis across Europe. We have a climate crisis, and then last year we could also see the pandemic hitting, where a lot of people were looking at Europe on what is Europe doing for me when it comes to health. And I really think that with the conference, we need to spark that debate and have a debate across Europe with each other on how we want Europe to look like in the next few years, because clearly the structure that we have at the moment is not ready for 2021, and also won't be for the next decennia. And I think this is something we're looking forward to. Gaby, you were just interrupted as you were sharing, what your expectations are from the conference. Would yours match mine? How would you formulate that?
In many ways, I think we have seen the deficiencies that Europe is not capable to act in many important policy areas for citizens. And I have to say, the question of investment in digital infrastructure should be also a key point, that we make sure in every member state we have strong digital infrastructure so that you are not kicked out. I already had the problem this morning, which sometimes happens here if too many people at the same time are using it. No, because I think really we need a recovery of Europe. We now have the recovery program, but it's not only an economic recovery or not only a social recovery. It should also be a political recovery, and to involve as many as possible into this debate. In what areas do citizens expect change? What concretely do they demand? We see a lot, if you look at the Eurobarometer, for example, that citizens have concrete ideas where Europe should deliver. And I hope that this conference can help to address the points, as you mentioned. If you look at migration policy, if you look at social policy, there are many areas, foreign policy, where this union that is strong, it's a big union in the world, can really play its role, and all this to deliver better for citizens. And therefore, I think many of the points I share. But Leonie, what I think is the difference for me, this endeavor, the conference, is not about how to best describe the problems and the deficiencies we all know, but to engage in a debate about better solutions, about what to do different. Where do we need treaty changes to have a Europe that is capable to act? Where also do we need policy changes? And not to have taboos in the beginning that this conference should do this or that only, but really to be open.
We need to invest into digital infrastructure, as Gaby said. Unfortunately, we were experiencing some difficulties with the connection, but I think we heard the gist of what she had to say. She's going to be back. Could you reflect on that, Leonie? What she said, and what do you think? And Gaby is already back, so she's going to listen to you hopefully very soon.
Yes, I think it will be very interesting to see. Obviously, it's going to be a debate on how Europe should look like, but at the same time, I have the impression that there are quite some people who already know, what kind of Europe they want. I include myself in that as well, representing, a non-partisan youth organization, but very political with a clear vision. I think the question of how precisely it looks like, this is something that not many people have thought of yet, because so far, you perhaps have thinking of taking this example, how a social democratic, your country can look like, but to really think it through on a European level, and to also look at the 2021 challenges and what the answer could be to that. I think that would be very interesting to kind of see. What we already see at the digital platform, which is one of the tools of this conference where everyone can get engaged in, is already that there is a discussion a bit on, the comment sections, for instance, taking place with people in favor, people against, people expressing themselves in the different languages of the European Union, which I think is a wonderful thing to see. What I'm interested in, Gaby, because I know, you are a mandate holder, you are elected to the European Parliament, you have been very formative for this entire process on what the conference should look like, already in the early beginnings. So I know you have clear ideas on what kind of Europe you want. And at the same time, I can see that you want to be open to what the citizens want. You want to hear what's going on. This is also one of the reasons why we have this event and why you invited me to this event as well. How do you want to bridge that, and how do you want to represent that in the next few years, essentially?
I mean, we as progressives have a clear vision of a Europe that needs to be more democratic and it needs to be more social. And we already have also agreed on key projects. But I think it will be very important that we engage in these debates with all stakeholders, and I think especially also with young people, because we are talking about the future of Europe. And this is what we wanted as the European Parliament and as progressives from the beginning, that we want to discuss what expectations do citizens have, for example, to make Europe more democratic? How to make sure that citizens have the feeling that their voice counts in this process, and especially also to collect ideas from the ground, because we often have a debate that we do joint position papers and recommendations and very much from top down. And this exercise is really to do it from bottom up and to involve people. And it doesn't mean that we explain them how Europe works and then explain them that our demands are the best, but that we really engage in debates, and I'm sure also controversial debates, and also to involve people that have a lot of critics regarding also Europe, and from there, as you said, on the different levels, to see, okay, if we discuss, for example, how to make Europe more democratic, what are the ideas how to do it? Which ideas get a lot of support? And which ideas, maybe we also will develop ideas like this that we haven't discussed yet here. And for me, this is the process about this conference. Or that we discuss, we just experienced together a global pandemic. I mean, we would have never anticipated before. And we realized we cannot tackle this pandemic fast if we have not better means to do it together. We saw that some governments were thinking, okay, I just close my border and then everything will be fine. Others didn't even let medical products through their territory to reach within the common market. I mean, something I would never have anticipated. Workers, cross-border workers, we have millions of them, couldn't reach their job. Or if they could reach it, they could not go home to see their kids. And all of this, and to see, okay, we have to learn from this. Therefore, for me also, a proper health union is a key issue. And how do we better tackle, for example, global pandemics like we have at the moment? And also, how do we make sure, for example, that the quick response Europe did, which in my view was fantastic, to have this SURE program to prevent that we don't have mass unemployment in Europe with this pandemic. But how can we develop stable solutions for this, so that not only under a huge pressure and time pressure to deliver on this? These are for me important questions to be discussed in this conference. And I would also be interested a little bit from your point of view as a young federalist, what, or if you would have to name 3 priorities, what would be your priorities where you think, oh my God, in this conference, this has to be tackled for us. This is something that we want to achieve with all of these debates and involvement.
That is a difficult question because you know, there's a lot of things to do essentially in Europe, and we've already submitted 10 ideas to the conference platform. So you see, our prioritization was already a bit wider. We've submitted one thing on health, so I'll join you there as well. I think it was very interesting for me last year to see the general public debate essentially on like, what is Europe doing in this case, and people are actually getting angry on Europe not acting as fast as, you know, one had imagined. And it's just interesting to see that there's this imagination that Europe is there for these things, and it wasn't, because it was not, you know, this was not the competence. This is not where Europe automatically acts. So I join you there. I think health, for instance, should become, as part of the health union, should be like a shared competence where you have the European Union acting and you have also the member states acting, because it's a very well, it's a policy field with very local implications for obvious reasons. I think it would be very interesting as a second priority then to work on European democracy. With the last elections, I was surprised, positively surprised, how many people reacted to the entire story around the Spitzenkandidaten, the leading candidates, where we had debates with different candidates. And in the end, the Commission President was Ursula von der Leyen, who did not run for the European parliamentary elections. And just to see again, there was, the thinking of a wider public of, okay, if I vote for someone, at least connected to the national party, why are they not Commission presidents? So this link exists apparently in public debates, and it also existed, wider beforehand. So I think this is where we should work on. So we have thinkings like, how can we set up, how can I vote in the Netherlands, for instance, when it comes to Europe, how could I vote for someone in Italy or in Finland to have like true European elections? Or how can we make sure that we really vote for a Commission president ourselves? And then the third thing I think would be foreign policy. We have so many policies in Europe where there's still unanimity, meaning like all of the member states need to agree to that, and that creates veto positions, but it also creates that certain policies that's certain politics that, for instance, look very far away from each other just because in content they're not related, but just for the fact that they are on the same table around the same time, they can be used against each other in negotiations to unblock a veto or something. These situations create situations that are very difficult to explain on what Europe is precisely doing. It's absolutely intransparent. It's also not rational. And I think it's also a bit outdated. We're now a union of 27 member states. People clearly perceive the European Union as an actor on foreign policy. And, for it to really act, this unanimity rule needs to go. There needs to be majority voting. So I think these would be the three priorities I would set there, yeah.
I think with these priorities, you seem to be very much in line what many people think, because last week I had a first view at the platform that was mentioned on have your say in Europe, and I could see that the question of democracy was very much, I think it got most of the questions and participants, and also the question of climate, I think, was important. This was also a question in the chat I saw on this, because this affects us all. It affects our future. It is one of the priorities also where the European Union formulated clear goals, but also to see how we can achieve it and involve everyone here in this debate, I think is very important. That differs, but also the question of foreign policy and of this kind of European policy, that you use one issue as a bargaining chip for another issue. I think that many people see that the advantage of the European Union, if it speaks with one voice, is that it can be really an important global player. But if just one of the 27 can achieve that Europe has no position because they don't agree, or they use this as a bargaining chip for another issue, I think that this will be very important. And I don't know who of the audience watched yesterday in Strasbourg the start of the project, where this question of democracy was also made very strong by David Sassoli, the president of the European Parliament, and we hope to have very good debates, and also in the end coming up with concrete proposals how to do it. For me, also, the right of initiative is very important point, and I agree with you totally. We cannot repeat what we did after the last elections. We cannot do that. We need a clear procedure, also a reliable procedure, that when we say to citizens, hey, your voice, your vote, with your vote, you also vote for the next president of the Commission, it will make a difference then that this has to be a reliable process and to come up with concrete ideas here. I would also like to explain a little bit that at the moment, when we look at the competences, it is only the Commission that can do a legal proposal, for example, to improve in certain policy areas the situation, and we can do initiative reports, but it's only the Commission. So, like every parliament in the world, to have this right of initiative and come up with legal proposals, for me also is very important. And I agree with Spitzenkandidaten and to address this question of electoral law in a broader sense. We can do it as a parliament, and I can promise you we are working on this seriously at the moment to come up with a proposal also into the conference of how to make the European elections real European elections and not so much as it is now often the case about national issues, and also how to strengthen European parties, which is very much linked if you want to have a more democratic union. I think this should be the case. But I also wanted to know a bit, Leonie, there was also a question in the chat asking for how can we make sure that we really have a European public that realizes that this conference is going on? I think if we would go together somewhere in the street and ask people, did you ever hear of the conference on the future of Europe? I don't think we would at the moment, it's day one after the start, to manage the expectations, but I think we have to spread the word that this is going on and that we want you, all of you, to bring in your ideas, proposals, concept, and engage. What would be your ideas how to achieve it?
I think that is an excellent question, because what we've seen last week specifically is that this entire conference project was blocked by member states a bit, and I think it's it is not an accident that all final details were finally dealt with on Friday, with everything being planned from Friday onwards. This, allowed for a very short time of inviting people, of getting journalists informed, excited perhaps as well, and get them to Strasbourg. So I think this is actually a crucial aspect. The conference, even though it seems to be a lot about the free institutions and who's in the boards and what is the commission, what's the parliament, what's the council doing, I think as civil society and as citizens, we have a role to make this ours as well. It's the results of the conference, whatever they might be. They cannot be ignored if a lot of people talk about this. So what I'm looking for is, journalists taking up this opportunity, actually looking at it, critically engaging with it, trying to see what's going on, really elaborating on it. I don't take, as an excuse, people are not interested in Europe. At the same time, as a teenager, perhaps, I'm also not interested in precise fiscal rules on national politics, and yet we write about them. I think this is precisely the same case where you need to write about Europe and what's going on there. And yeah, it's democracy where you don't just vote and now need to write about the elections, but this is an actual opportunity for us to shape Europe. And if we all participate in it, and I think it is very much possible to critically engage with the conference, still demanding, how to make it more democratic, how to make it more, closer to the citizens, then I think it has an opportunity. I can tell you that as Jeff, we have a project together with AEG. So Jeff is the Young European Federalist. We're active in more than 30 European countries. AEG similarly is a European student organization active in even more European countries. And our project, Next Chapter Europe, will be organizing youth dialogues, for instance, where we are now training our people to go into to be active in their cities and towns, how to reach out to organizations, youth centers, people who do not usually deal or engage with European politics, and to have these discussions, make them informative, make them as open as possible, take them and bring them into the different platforms so that I can be part of the conference. And then what is very important is that at the end of it, we're also going to look at how was this used? How is your opinion reflected back in it? Invite also people who've been participating in the conference, have them, engage in the discussion on why was it included? Why was it not included, for instance? And I think this feedback loop is crucial for the success of the conference, because otherwise people might experience a bit more as a talking, listening exercise where you just have citizens there. So I really look forward to the debates in the end. And so there's things to do as journalists, media, stakeholders, but civil society, citizens, very much encouraged, I think, to make this our own in the next few years.
Yeah, I think it's important that we drag it out to the people. And I think media will play a role, but also civil society will play a role here. Also the national parliaments. This is why we did fight so much also to have enough members of national parliaments next to the citizens and others in it, because we need debates everywhere. So to have the transnational debates by the citizens chosen by lot, but really representative for our societies, meaning in terms of age, of gender, but also of socio-economic background or education. And that really people feel represented. I think it is a good new way to start it. And for me in this process, it was really important to make sure that we have strong criteria for this, so that it's really most inclusive. And but on the other hand, I think it is a very new experiment for the European Union for the first time. On one hand, to say yes, we have representative democracy, and that is very important, and this is our strength, but we want for this debate on the future of Europe from the beginning also a strong participatory democracy, this involvement, and to see how this works. And I'm sure if this works well, this could be also a more permanent model to see how we can have this, but indeed only if we make it happen so that people don't have the impression this is just for show, but in the end, what will happen with our proposals? And I talked to many people that had the experience of this consultation processes the Commission does, that in the end people said, I'm not participating anymore. You send it into the orbit and then you don't know what happens with it. And I think indeed this will be very important also to have these feedback loops that the Parliament wanted so much, also to give a feedback, what was taken on board, what was maybe not taken on board, why was it not taken on board, and also to have citizens in a very transparent way to participate in these processes. So what we can do is we can stream all these meetings of plenary. We can stream meetings of citizens so that also the ones that are not part of it can also see what is happening there. They can debate it. They can comment on it maybe also in the chat. And in this way of having more transparency, also to reach out to more people. But I think we have to really reflect how we do it, because also my first look at this platform, I thought, it seems not to work automatically. So we have to see how we can point out to this platform. And this is why I'm also very happy that we also have our platform, Progressives for Europe, also to have a forum where everyone can participate that is a member of this family, or their ideas are attractive, and also to really debate and to have it sort of in different languages, to make sure that language is not a barrier when we discuss our ideas for the future. Because I think in the end, we need broad alliances really for key projects. And for me, for sure, the progressive projects like making it more democratic, making it more social, making it more capable to act, and to see that something happens also with these proposals in the end. And you don't just write a nice report, put it in your cupboard, and then you say done with it, and we continue with business as usual. And I see, and you mentioned it, that there are still governments that are really putting on the handbrake, that really are reluctant to have such an open process here. And the parliament was always pushing and was a driver for this project. And I think it will be important also to have a certain dynamic here, because otherwise it will be easier in the end for these governments that just want the business as usual, that they cannot do it. Because I'm really convinced if we just continue the way we are doing European policies like we do at the moment, Europe will have no future. And here to see also how different civil society organizations like the Federalists, like YEF, also we have a lot of social organizations here, youth organizations, how they will make this conference their conference, and then also press that something is going to happen and that this is not possible, what I described, that in the end we will end up with another report and changing nothing.
Yeah. I very much agree with you. I mean, either way, like Europe is not just Brussels or Strasbourg or, the different capitals, but Europe is everywhere. And this is why we need to have debates everywhere. Have a debate with your mayor, for instance, engage them on what it means to be part of Europe when you're in your city or in your town. What I'm interested in, because that is your specific profile, is what would be your idea then on how to make Europe more social?
We started already in the pandemic, on one hand, to see that if we come up with the same answers we did in the financial and economic crisis, Europe would never get out of this pandemic, and that we already had a consensus in the parliament, in the council, that we need more social investment, and also that we have to see that this pandemic showed us also deficiency and problems. I mean, if you look at the pandemic, that it did hit people very different if they had a precarious job or if they had a well-paid job, if they had also, if you have homeschooling, for example, if you have your children all in the same room, you don't have the devices to do it, it's different. You had people that could do home office and other people that had to go to their supermarket, etc., and was not in the beginning protected enough. And to see, okay, if we want to do a real recovery after this pandemic, we have to do things different. And we have to make sure that in Europe we push really the quality of jobs. Also that, and this is the aim, to reduce people in precarious situations and to reduce poverty. And one point I would like to address, what we always see, that there is a perception in certain member states that the economy comes first and then the rest sort of will trickle down, and that we make sure that the social rights are on the same level as economic freedoms. For me, this is also very important and would require treaty changes too, because otherwise we will not achieve this. So for me, the future of Europe also means that we give people the vision that their life in the future, that they can have a good life in the future, and that we want everyone to have a good life, and we put the well-being of people in the center, not just a market or whatever as a priority. I don't know how you see it as a young person, because I can see that in this pandemic, young people were affected again much more than others. If I look at the development of youth unemployment, I can see that this increased tremendously in many member states also, because the good measures we did, like the SURE program, these Kurzarbeit, I'm just missing the word in English, so that people will not be laid off, but to keep them in job will be supported, that young people could not profit from it because they often just had limited time contracts and were laid off first. We can see that they were affected very much if you look at people at university or doing doing a traineeship or working in a company, and therefore for me this question of when we go into the recovery, what do we do to compensate for this? And how can we give better perspective also to young people in Europe is important, and to know how you assess the situation in the pandemic and what lessons for the future of Europe you would propose.
Let me just very briefly say on that. I mean, it has been a massive factor. It's not just economics, because obviously, like, youth unemployment gives me, memories back from the economic crisis, not in a good way. And this is going to have, again, repercussions, because you already saw that with, I'm now 30, you could see that with people in the mid-2010s, having to move in back with their parents. Those were also social factors coming in there. One example that I wanted to point out to you is also, it has an effect on youth engagements, because right now the laptop or your phone is everything on how to volunteer. And if that is missing, for instance, then one thing is already missing. Then obviously you have economic constraints, you have mental health constraints coming on top of that. So I think it will be very interesting to see how the entire future of Europe debates on a conference hopefully goes hand in hand with what will be like a post-traumatic debates that we also need to deal with as a society, because we've seen freedom of movement taken away for reasons, justified, sometimes also unjustified in Europe. We've seen rule of law violations coming in as well on top of whatever was going on. So I think that will be interesting, and it would be very interesting if the conference turns out to be that platform where we have that debate in an open way, but also in a way where we don't just embrace, and I say this as someone who really likes to use Twitter, I hope we don't use it as, like on Twitter, where you have your points and the other person has the other points, and that's it. So perhaps we can actually revive that debating culture where, you know, you listen to the other one's arguments as well, and sometimes say, all right, I hear you. These things make sense to me. Perhaps we can find an agreement on C. I think that will be actually very interesting. And there's a lot of potential in the conference there if every one of us uses that well.
I think that is a very good, almost final word to say. I mean, this conference is not only about you and about important issues like democracy, how to make Europe more social or capable to act, but it is also about starting a new culture of debate on these future issues, that we learn again to listen to each other. And for me, therefore, these transnational debates are so important to say, if, for example, the Polish plumber listens to the French nurse and the German single mother and maybe an architect or whatever from another country, the different perceptions, but also to listen to each other, but then to do the next step together, even if you have different opinions, to come to joint proposals and solutions. And as you said, that we don't stick to our bubbles, but come together in the framework of this conference on the future of Europe, listen to each other, debate, but also do this hard step of coming up with proposals and to make change happen. And I think also we need a lot of involvement to be persistent, that something happens in the end with these debates and with these proposals and ideas. And also this is why I hope that we could make you a bit more curious about this conference on the future of Europe, at the different perceptions of not only institutions, but different people on this conference, and that it is an experiment. We want to do it different this time, and we want to do it really with the involvement of everyone, what is often called a bottom-up approach, instead of just communicating to you things that should be done in Europe to all of you, and to encourage you to participate in this debate. And here I would like to bring in, on one hand, the platform that you find that the Commission started, but also our platform, Progressives for Europe, to have a look there if you are interested, what is happening there, to see if you want to participate and engage, and to reach out to the different groups, like Leonie representing young people in Europe, that we reach out to all the different groups and trying to involve them in this project, because I see it as an opportunity. I'm also sometimes critical, and this is why I'm pushing that we cannot let it happen that this will be just a show event. But it's also up in our hands to make sure that we follow this up and that we find broad alliances to create a better future of Europe, because it's our future. And I hope it really is in our hands. So to finish, I think it would be good to see if we could already engage some more people, make them at least curious, and not to think, what the hell is the future of Europe? What does it have to do with me? It has to do a lot with you. And I hand over to Peter to sum it up. So this was also an experiment. We did it all for the first time here. Hope start a new series that will be interesting for you. And we are looking back to your feedback.
Absolutely, and thank you very much to both of you. This was a very interesting debate, and we're going to continue this, as you said, Gaby, and thank you, Leonie, also for being part of this, and we hope to see you on the road, because this opens now a road, and we want to go out there. We hope to be also physically present later on in the member states, because as we can see, you know, technology is sometimes playing tricks on us, but we need to come back to normal life and come back to conferences and exchange. Of course, we'll continue our exchange on our platform, as you said, Gaby, but we will also engage with the people, with European citizens, with young youth organizations in the future. Thank you very much to both of you, and I'm looking forward to the next debates. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.